open it up to questions if the legislators want to come up here, because I don't know who's going to get a question. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Petersen, obvious question to ask here is how much is this particular bill going to cost? This will require a lot of IT time and require somebody to actually put this information into a readable. What's the cost estimate on doing this?
Last year, the cost estimate was $300,000. I'll bring in millions and millions of dollars of budget cuts to pay for it, about 20 times over. And the reality is that estimate, in my humble opinion, is outrageously high. There are states who have implemented this for zero marginal dollars, zero. And we already we've actually had some success in this area. It's been very quiet. It hasn't been in the form of a bill, but last year we got budget language that provided for the commencement of the main agencies of the government, of the state government, to start making their data forms consistent, which is critical to have a uniform search engine, for instance, that can find money anywhere in the budget. We have that already going on, and the Department of Transportation for several years has been setting aside money, largely because of those federal requirements, that they make certain aspects of their budget transparent. We have taken steps in this direction, but our government as a whole has not made the commitment that this will apply to all government. So first of all, the cost estimate from last year, we haven't seen this year's, was $300,000. We have offered budget cuts that will more than pay for that. And we also understand from a realistic viewpoint and from the experience of other states that that cost estimate itself is outrageously high.
Also, as a follow-up here, how deep does this go? You said put checks online. Will public employees' checks that are paychecks be subject to being online? A teacher, a police officer?
You know, right now those are subject to FOIA. I mean, they're publicly available if you were willing to do the work to go get them. The bill that we have in the Senate does not go to that level. It goes to departmental spending and program spending. We want to get down to every activity of government is the level we're aiming at. There's always still FOIA, but what the idea here is you can get from Virginia Data Point now a check. You can find that $32.18 was used to buy gas on Braddock Road on December 4th. You don't know who bought it, you don't know where they were going, you don't know why they were there, you don't know what department they were in. Actually, you can figure out what department they were in. But that's it. It gives you no context. This bill will allow you to do, through 4 clicks, what now takes me 4 FOIAs. If I find out one juvenile justice program is spending X dollars and dealing with Y number of kids, then to find out how much the total is, that's 1 FOIA. So I go up 1 level now. And in the same pot, they're spending money on a boot camp for kids. And I need another FOIA to find out how much that is, how many kids they've got, etc. And then I need some other form of information to compare the outcomes of the kids in the boot camp versus the juvenile detention facility. And if that exists anywhere. Now, the governor has started a Virginia Performs effort here in Virginia, and it's been developing over the last, I want to say, year and a half. And what we envision, again, is connecting the two. So you get performance data with budget data along with the planning numbers so that you have a context in which to view the information that we're trying to get presented to citizens.
Okay, let me jump in for a second, Hank. Let's take, for example, that situation of the state lottery paying, for example, Mr. Trump. Now, maybe in the state budget document, which I have a copy on my desk, they have a line item for marketing, okay? And maybe it's $3, $4, $5 million. But in order to actually get within that detail, find out who's the recipient of these funds, which is really what the critical question is, that's something that right now is not accessible. It's not even necessarily accessible to me as a senator. And I'm being asked to vote on a budget, being asked to fund these programs. All we're saying is, let's make that information accessible to people. I'm not interested in tracking down paychecks for individual state employees. That has no value. It's really a matter of saying, you know, let's break down these line items and find out where this money is going.
Well, I'll follow that up. What about privacy provisions? You may not be interested in what your neighbor makes, but I may be interested in what my neighbor makes. What kind of protections are we going to have?
Well, first of all, anyone who's a public employee, your salary is public knowledge. If you say someone's a GS-13 or a GS-9, you know, that's public knowledge. I was a city councilman the salaries of our city employees was in the state budget, was in our budget document. So there's no privacy interest in the amount of your salary when you're a public employee. I mean, let's face it, teachers are out there trying to get more pay. And they'll say, this is what I'm making now, I want to make more. Same thing with firefighters. I tend to support those efforts, but part of supporting those efforts is we got to let people know what the numbers are.
That's it. It's the establishment, you know. There's a small group of people in Virginia, and it is bipartisan, that control the information that is used to run this state, budget-wise. And they have no particular interest in inconveniencing themselves by being bothered with a whole bunch of other opinions on what they ought to do. And, you know, and now the same people understand that there's a certain degree of openness that is necessary in government, but that's the conflict. That's the conflict. Especially in this day and age, information is power. And that's true in the political arena as much as it is anywhere else. And the people who have it, you know, have an interest in keeping it. And by keeping it, I mean keeping it Harvard so only they have it. Because then they have a huge advantage over the rest of us. You know, if you ask me, Cuccinelli, what are you going to cut? What are my resources to go answer that question versus Senator Colton is the chairman of the Finance Committee. He has rather extraordinary resources at his disposal to go answer that question. Now, he's the chairman of the Finance Committee, but nonetheless, I represent 200,000 people as well. And my folks deserve the same level of representation that his get. So that is where I would expect the resistance to come from, as well as any of the groups who would rather not anyone even know that they're being paid by government. But there's plenty of those, and they lobby. But we'll see who comes out on this. This is one of those that I believe if we don't get it this year, we'll be back next year, we'll be back the year after that. This is one of those things that the logic for it is so overwhelming that it will be achieved at some point. It will be achieved at some point. The question is when, and the sooner the better for the people of Virginia.
Ron?
Gentlemen, this enabling legislation, do you envision this for the state only operation, Department of Finance, or is this going to flow down to all the localities? And if not, can there be a provision made that through local referendums that this would apply across all cities and counties? And second part of that, does VACO, VML, and JLARC support this bill?
Well, I would think that by implementing it at the state level and making it available, you know, this is software that has to be purchased and implemented. The federal government, and to answer partly your question, you know, the federal government purchased the software for $600,000. The idea that ours is it's going to cost half as much to do it in Virginia is a little bit hard to believe. But once that software is available, hopefully it can be made available to the local governments. Hopefully it can be made available in a way that's easy for localities to implement it themselves. We know we have local governments that want to take advantage of this, and apparently we have local governments that are dragging their feet on a lot of transparency issues. So I think that's a good follow-up, but I think we're just trying to get a foot in the door on the state at this point.
I'm going to speak just a moment to that. I'm not interested in putting a big unfunded mandate on our local governments. Some may have capacity to do this, some may not. Right now, we're trying to remove an impediment that prevents them from putting this online right now. So that's one of the bills. I think the bottom line is more transparency is a better thing. Again, I'm not looking for this to be an unfunded mandate. I think we're just trying to make this, first of all, mandated for us as a state legislature, but at the local level, just permit them to do it.